Hello, friends! I want to say that I miss you guys so much. So I figured I would record some lessons because we're not going to let this virus stop us from learning. So um, I wanted to say good morning, good afternoon, whatever time you're watching this. And then I miss you guys very, very much. In Reader's Workshop, we've been learning about studying our characters, and we know that we need to collect evidence on them, pay attention to how they're reacting and what they're saying, in order to figure out who they really are. And so I have a new book called Ivy and Bean, and it's really good. So I figured we can kind of read a little bit of it together every single day and kind of try to figure out like what kind of characters are Ivy and Bean. Are you ready? Let's do it. Okay. Ivy and Bean. All right, so I'm looking at the cover and it looks like Ivy and Bean are really good friends. Like they're smiling at each other, they're back to back. And let's look at the blurb on the back because we know really good second grade readers do that. It says, the moment they saw each other, Bean and Ivy knew they would never be friends. But when Bean plays a trick on her sister and has to hide quick, Ivy comes to the rescue with her wand, some face paint, and a bucket of worms. Will they end up in trouble? Maybe. Will they have fun? Of course. Ooh, so I'm thinking that Ivy and Bean are really good friends. They help each other when they're in need. I'm thinking they might get into some trouble. Okay, let's read and see if our predictions are true. This first chapter is called No Thanks. Before Bean met Ivy, she didn't like her. Bean's mother was always saying that Bean should try playing with the new girl across the street, but Bean didn't want to. She's 7 years old, just like you, said her mother, and she seems like such a nice girl. You could be friends. I already have friends, said Bean, and that was true. Bean did have a lot of friends. But really, she didn't want to play with Ivy because her mother was right. Ivy did seem like such a nice girl. Even from across the street, she looked nice. But nice, Bean knew, is another word for boring. Ivy sat nicely on her front steps. Bean zipped around her yard and yelled. Ivy had long, curly red hair, pushed back with a sparkly headband. Bean's hair was black, and it only came to her chin because it got tangled if it was any longer. But Bean put on a headband. It fell off. Ivy wore a dress every day. Bean wore a dress when her mother made her. Ivy was always reading a big book. Bean never read big books. Reading made her jumpy. Bean was sure that Ivy never stomped in puddles. She was sure that Ivy never smashed rocks to find gold. Wow, I have so many thoughts already. I want you to stop and think about some things that you're thinking already about Ivy and Bean. Stop and think. What are you thinking about Ivy and Bean so far? All right, I have made a teacher, Ivy and Bean. So far, I'm thinking that Bean is more, like more messy, troublemaker. So I think Bean is messy, a troublemaker, and like jumpy and hyper. Yeah, give me a thumbs up if you agree. Okay, now Ivy, Ivy seems nice. The book said nice several times, so she seems nice. She's pretty girly, right? And maybe a little bit more responsible because she's like reading a book. She's sitting nicely in the yard. She's not running around like Bean. All right, so I added nice, calm, responsible, and girly to Ivy's. Okay, let's read some more. She was sure that Ivy had never once in her whole life climbed a tree and fallen out. Bean got bored just looking at her. So when her mother said she should play with Ivy, Bean just shook her head. "No thanks," she said. "You could give it a try. You might like her," said Bean's mom. "All aboard! Next train for Boring is leaving now!" yelled Bean. Her mother frowned. "That's not very nice, Bean." "I was nice. I said no thanks," said Bean. "I just don't want to, okay?" Okay, her mother sighed. "Have it your way." So for weeks and weeks, Bean didn't play with Ivy. But one day, something happened that changed her mind. There's a picture of Bean and her mom. What do you think changed her mind? Right, guys, that's the first chapter. When we're done reading, we stop and think what we know about the characters. So we said, so far, we think Ivy is nice, calm, responsible, girly. And Bean is messy, a troublemaker, jumpy, and hyper. I also think that Bean has got a bit of a sense of humor by some of the things she said. "Next stop, Boring Town," right? Like, that's pretty funny. So I might need to add funny to my list for Bean. Okay, we'll read more tomorrow, but I want you to think about what we already know about Ivy and Bean. And as we read more tomorrow, we're going to think, has our thoughts on them changed, or do we still think the same thing? Bye!